Move back. Celeste Arden's voice was almost lost beneath the roar of the waterfall below. Black Maid Naomi Brooks stood on the narrow cliff path, clutching a silver serving case against her chest. 10 feet away, billionaire Adrian Vale was coming around the bend, but Celeste had not seen him yet. The wind howled around them. "Miss Arden, there is nowhere else to go," Naomi said. "That is the point." Celeste stepped closer. Naomi looked over the edge. Hundreds of feet below, a river cut through the canyon like a black ribbon. One wrong step would be enough. He had followed Celeste after receiving a strange message from Naomi that morning. "Please come to Red Ridge. Come alone. If I am wrong, I will explain everything." Now he watched his fiancée corner the Black Maid at the edge of a cliff. And what happened next would change every relationship in his life. Before we continue, subscribe and tell us where you're watching from, because this cliffside secret was about to explode. Earlier that morning, Naomi had found a sealed envelope beneath Celeste's dressing table while cleaning the private suite. The envelope had already been torn, and Adrian's name caught her attention. Inside was a copy of a land transfer agreement involving Red Ridge, the same canyon property Adrian had refused to sell 3 times. Adrian often spoke about turning the valley into a protected conservation area. The document said otherwise. It showed that the land would transfer to a private development company 48 hours after Adrian signed an emergency trust amendment. Naomi read the company name twice. Arden Development Holdings. Celeste's family company. Then she found a second page. A payment schedule. $5 million had already been transferred. Another $15 million would be released after the trust amendment was signed. Naomi heard footsteps in the hallway. She slid the papers back into the envelope and replaced it exactly where she found it. Celeste entered seconds later. "Why are you in my room?" "I was told to clean the suite." Celeste's eyes moved to the dressing table. For half a second, fear crossed her face. Then she smiled. "You're very thorough." Naomi lowered her gaze. "I try to be." Celeste walked slowly toward her. "Did you find anything interesting?" "No, ma'am." Celeste stopped inches away. "Good." She smiled again. "Because curiosity is dangerous in houses like this." Naomi said nothing. Celeste left. The moment the door closed, Naomi knew she had been caught. She also knew she needed proof. By noon, she discovered Arden Development Holdings had been created 4 months earlier using a nominee director connected to Victor Lang, Adrian's chief legal advisor. That was when Naomi sent Adrian the message. She could not risk calling if Celeste was monitoring his phone. At 3 in the afternoon, Celeste unexpectedly announced that she wanted to inspect Red Ridge before the charity board meeting. She ordered Naomi to come with her. Adrian was supposedly in the city. Naomi understood immediately. Celeste wanted her away from the mansion. The drive took nearly an hour. Celeste barely spoke. When they reached the ridge, no contractors, surveyors, or board members were waiting. Only wind, canyon, and the old stone path. Naomi stepped from the SUV. "Where is everyone?" Celeste locked the vehicle. "There is no one else." Naomi looked at her. Celeste removed her sunglasses. "You should have lied better." Naomi's heartbeat slowed. "What do you mean? You read the envelope." "No." Celeste laughed. "I watched you through the dressing room camera." Naomi said nothing. Celeste walked toward the cliff path. "Come. I would rather wait here." "You do not have that choice." She opened her handbag just enough for Naomi to see the black handle of a compact pistol. Naomi followed. But she also pressed the side button on the silver serving case. A tiny recording device inside activated. The case had belonged to Adrian's late mother and was used for formal outdoor events. Naomi had discovered months ago that its antique lock cavity was large enough to conceal a small recorder. She had prepared for confrontation, not a cliff. Now, on the narrow path, Celeste stood between Naomi and the safer ground. "You could have stayed invisible," Celeste said. "That seems to be what you prefer. People in your position survive by knowing when not to look." Naomi met her eyes. And people in yours survive because everyone is too afraid to speak. Celeste's smile disappeared. Behind the rocks, Adrian's face hardened. He had never heard Celeste speak this way to anyone. You think Adrian will believe you? Celeste asked. I do not need him to believe me. Naomi lifted the silver case slightly. I need him to hear you. Celeste's eyes dropped to it. What is in there? Why are you worried? Celeste stepped forward. Give it to me. No. Naomi. No. Celeste reached for the case. Naomi moved back. Her shoe landed inches from the cliff edge. Adrian started forward, but stopped when Naomi raised one hand slightly. She had seen him. Celeste had not. Naomi needed the confession. Tell me why Red Ridge matters so much, she said. Celeste stared at her. Then pride won. Because Adrian is a fool. Adrian froze. He is sitting on land worth hundreds of millions and wants to protect birds and trees. So you created Arden Development Holdings. Celeste's expression changed. Naomi continued. And Victor prepared the trust amendment. Celeste's voice dropped. You read everything. Enough. Celeste looked toward the canyon. Then you know why you cannot go back. Adrian's hand tightened into a fist. Naomi forced herself to remain calm. What are you going to tell him happened? That you stole jewelry from the house, panicked when I confronted you, and ran. And then, you slipped. Naomi stared at her. Celeste smiled. It is tragic, really. She reached for the serving case again. Naomi stepped sideways. Celeste grabbed the strap. They struggled for only a second. Naomi released it deliberately. Celeste stumbled backward with the sudden loss of resistance. Her heel struck loose gravel. The arrogance vanished from her face. Her arms flew outward as the silver case crashed onto the path. Celeste's foot slid toward the edge. Naomi! Adrian's voice thundered across the ridge. Celeste spun toward him in shock. That movement destroyed what little balance she had left. The stones beneath her shoe broke free. She slipped. Naomi lunged forward and caught Celeste's wrist with both hands just before she disappeared over the cliff. Celeste screamed. Her body swung against the rock face. Adrian ran toward them. Naomi dropped to her knees, fighting to hold on. Celeste looked up at the woman she had intended to destroy. Please, she gasped. Naomi's arms trembled. Adrian reached them and grabbed Celeste's other arm. Together, he and Naomi pulled her back onto the path. For several seconds no one spoke. Celeste lay on the ground, shaking. Adrian stood above her. His face was pale. Not from fear. From what he had heard. Then the silver serving case beeped. Still recording. Celeste looked at it. Adrian looked at her. And Naomi realized the cliff was no longer the most dangerous thing on Red Ridge. Adrian looked at the silver case on the ground. The recorder light was blinking. Celeste followed his gaze and pushed herself upright. Adrian, listen to me. He did not answer. Naomi was still breathing hard from pulling Celeste back from the cliff. Dust covered her uniform, and one palm was scraped. Adrian noticed. You saved her. Naomi looked at Celeste. I wasn't going to let her fall. Celeste's face twisted with humiliation. Adrian bent down and picked up the recorder. How much did this capture? Naomi answered carefully. Everything since we left the SUV. Celeste stood. That recording is illegal. Adrian finally looked at her. You just admitted to creating a company to steal Red Ridge, framing Naomi, and planning to make her death look like an accident. You misunderstood me. I heard you. You heard pieces. I heard enough. Celeste stepped toward him. Victor handled the documents. I never signed anything. Naomi glanced at Adrian. She is trying to separate herself from the paper trail. Celeste snapped. Stay out of this. Adrian's voice sharpened. No. She stays in. The words seemed to scare Celeste more than the cliff. Adrian opened the case and removed the recorder. Then his phone vibrated. A message from his security chief appeared. Sir, Victor Lang left the manor 20 minutes ago. His office has been cleared. Adrian showed Naomi. He knows. Naomi looked toward Celeste. Celeste's expression gave her away. You warned him, Naomi said. I did nothing. Adrian stepped closer. Where is Victor going? Celeste folded her arms. You cannot prove I know. Naomi noticed the SUV keys clipped inside Celeste's handbag. She also remembered something from the land transfer papers. The payment schedule, she said. The second transfer was tied to a survey office. Adrian frowned. What survey office? Red Ridge Land Management. Celeste's eyes moved toward the highway. Naomi saw it. So that is where he is going. Adrian immediately called security. Send 2 teams to Red Ridge Land Management. No sirens. Victor Lang may be destroying evidence. Celeste laughed bitterly. You think this ends with Victor? Adrian lowered the phone. What does that mean? She said nothing. Naomi looked at the cliff path, then at the SUV. Someone else is involved. Celeste smiled. Finally. Adrian stared at her. Who? You should ask your board. Naomi felt the story widening. This was no longer just a greedy fiancé and a corrupt lawyer. Far more than expected. Adrian's phone rang. His chief financial officer, Leonard Shaw. Adrian answered. Where are you? Leonard's voice came quickly. At headquarters. We have a problem. What happened? Someone initiated a transfer from the Conservation Trust. Adrian's face changed. How much? 32 million. Celeste looked almost pleased. Naomi saw it. Can you stop it? Adrian asked. We are trying, but the authorization came from your account. That's impossible. Your biometric approval was attached. Adrian went silent. Naomi looked at him. Were you ever asked to approve a conservation payment recently? No. Then he remembered. 3 nights ago. Celeste asked me to approve a charity renewal on her tablet. Naomi turned toward Celeste. Celeste smiled faintly. You really should read before you sign. Adrian's anger became still. Where is the money going? Leonard answered. Arden Development Holdings. Silence. Then Adrian said. Freeze every trust account. Lock my executive credentials. Nobody moves funds without my physical approval. He ended the call. Celeste took 1 step backward. Adrian noticed. Running again. I nearly died. And Naomi saved you. Celeste looked at her with hatred. Naomi stepped closer. You were willing to let me die for land you didn't own. You have no idea what is at stake. Then explain it. Celeste hesitated. That was when a distant engine approached. A black SUV appeared on the ridge road. Adrian's security team. Celeste's face tightened. But Naomi noticed something wrong. The vehicle had no company markings. Adrian. He looked at her. That isn't your security. The SUV accelerated. Adrian pulled Celeste and Naomi behind the stone barrier as the vehicle stopped 20 yards away. 2 men stepped out. One carried a metal case. The other raised a handgun. Celeste whispered, No. Adrian looked at her. You know them. She looked terrified now. They work for Victor. The armed man shouted. Hand over the recorder. Naomi's pulse jumped. They knew exactly what had been recorded. Adrian moved the recorder inside his jacket. No. The man raised the gun. Naomi looked around quickly. The ridge path narrowed behind them, but a maintenance trail curved down toward an old ranger station. He pointed. Move. They ran. A shot cracked against the stone behind them. Celeste screamed. Adrian grabbed her arm and kept moving. Naomi led them down the trail. At the ranger station, she shoved open the warped wooden door. Inside were broken chairs, emergency ropes, and an old radio mounted on the wall. Adrian locked the door. Celeste stared at him. They will kill us. Adrian turned. They came because of your plan. No, she said. Her voice shook. They came because I was never supposed to survive either. Naomi stared at her. Celeste's confidence was gone. Victor promised me control of Red Ridge after the transfer. But last week I found another contract. Adrian's eyes narrowed. What contract? Celeste swallowed. One that transferred Arden Development Holdings to someone else after your death. Adrian went still. Naomi asked, Who? Celeste looked toward the dusty window as the armed men approached the station. Then she whispered the name. Your father's oldest business partner. Adrian's face drained. Samuel Crest. Before Celeste could answer, the old radio crackled to life. A calm male voice came through. Adrian, if you can hear me, give them the recorder. Adrian stared at the speaker. The voice continued. Do that, and all three of you may still leave Red Ridge alive. Naomi looked at Adrian. Celeste looked terrified. And Adrian finally understood that the man behind the cliffside plot was someone who had been sitting beside his family for 20 years. The voice on the radio silenced the ranger station. Adrian stared at the speaker. Samuel Crest had known his father for 27 years. He had attended family funerals, holidays, board meetings, and every major Vale Industries expansion. When Adrian inherited the company, Samuel had been the first person to tell him loyalty mattered more than blood. Now his voice came through a dusty emergency radio while armed men surrounded the building. Samuel, Adrian said. Call them off. A soft laugh answered. You always were too trusting. Celeste closed her eyes. Naomi looked at her. You knew. Not at first. Adrian turned sharply. Celeste swallowed. Victor approached me 6 months after our engagement. He said Samuel wanted Red Ridge, but you would never sell. He offered me shares if I helped pressure you into the trust amendment. And you agreed. I thought it was business. You tried to make Naomi's death look accidental. Celeste looked away. Samuel's voice returned. The recorder, Adrian. Naomi moved toward the rear window. 2 men were circling the building. A third remained by the SUV. Is there another exit? She asked. Celeste pointed toward a metal hatch behind an old cabinet. Maintenance tunnel. Adrian looked at her. How do you know? I was here with Victor last month. They pulled the cabinet aside. The hatch was padlocked. Outside footsteps approached. Adrian grabbed a rusted fire axe and struck the lock twice. Snap. Naomi opened the hatch, revealing a narrow stone passage. Go, Adrian said. They climbed down moments before the ranger station door crashed open above them. The tunnel smelled of wet stone and rust. Adrian used his phone flashlight as they moved beneath the ridge. Where does this end? Naomi asked. Near the survey platform, Celeste said. Adrian stopped. That overlooks the development boundary. A metallic sound echoed ahead. Naomi extinguished the light. 3 voices drifted through the darkness. One belonged to Victor. We need the recorder before Crest arrives. Celeste whispered. Samuel is coming. Naomi's stomach tightened. They crawled toward an opening. Beyond it sat a storage chamber filled with survey equipment and old maps. Victor stood beside 2 guards. On a folding table, a laptop was connected to a satellite terminal. A countdown flashed. Transfer authorization expires. 12 minutes and 48 seconds. Naomi understood. The 32 million transfer. They can still finish it. Adrian looked at the laptop. They need my biometric confirmation. Celeste pointed toward the table. Beside the computer sat a portable fingerprint scanner and a clear strip inside a plastic sleeve. Adrian's fingerprint. They lifted it from the tablet, Celeste whispered. Naomi's expression hardened. They don't need Adrian anymore. Victor picked up the strip. Prepare the scanner. Adrian stepped forward. Naomi caught his jacket. No. If they complete that transfer, then we stop it without giving them you. An old electrical panel was mounted on the tunnel wall. Naomi remembered the survey station ran on an independent generator. She opened the panel. "Celeste, when I say now, pull that red lever." Celeste stared at her. "You trust me?" "No." Naomi handed her the handle. "But you want Samuel to lose." Naomi crept behind stacked equipment until she was close to the laptop. Victor placed the copied fingerprint over the scanner. "Now." Celeste pulled the lever. Darkness swallowed the chamber. Victor shouted. Naomi rushed forward and swept the laptop from the table. Crashed onto the stone floor. One guard grabbed her. Naomi drove her shoulder into his chest and twisted free. Adrian tackled the second man. Celeste kicked the fingerprint scanner beneath a cabinet. Victor reached for the fallen laptop. Its screen flickered back on. 4 minutes and 11 seconds. The transfer was still active. Victor smiled. "You didn't stop anything." Then headlights swept through the upper entrance. Vehicle arrived. Samuel Crest entered the chamber with security. He looked older than Adrian remembered, but calm. "Enough." Everyone froze. Samuel's eyes moved from Adrian to Naomi. Then Celeste. "You have all made this far more difficult than necessary." Adrian stepped forward. "You tried to steal my company and kill an innocent woman." Samuel sighed. "I tried to preserve what your father built. My father protected Red Ridge. Your father changed his mind before he died." Adrian frowned. Samuel opened a leather folder. Inside was an old contract bearing Adrian's father's signature. Celeste stared at it. Naomi noticed something immediately. A date. The contract had supposedly been signed 3 days after Adrian's father entered the hospital and lost the use of his right hand. Naomi looked at Adrian. "That signature is impossible." Samuel's calm expression finally cracked. Adrian stared at the contract, then at the man his family had trusted for decades. And in that instant, he understood the conspiracy had not begun with Celeste, Victor, or even Red Ridge. It had started before his father died. Adrian stared at the forged contract until his anger turned cold. "My father could not have signed this," he said. He had already lost movement in his right hand. Samuel's expression tightened. Victor looked at him. That glance was enough. Naomi stepped toward the broken laptop. "The transfer is still active." The screen flashed. 1 minute and 42 seconds. Samuel moved first. "Finish it." Victor lunged for the fingerprint scanner beneath the cabinet. Celeste kicked it away. "You said I would control Red Ridge," she snapped. "You were going to erase me too." Samuel's patience vanished. "You were always temporary." The countdown reached 1 minute. Naomi dropped beside the laptop and pulled the satellite cable from its port. Nothing happened. Victor laughed. "The authorization is already queued." Adrian grabbed the laptop. "What stops it?" Naomi looked at the biometric prompt. "Your live fingerprint." Samuel stepped toward Adrian. "Do it." "No." One of Samuel's guards raised his weapon. Celeste grabbed a metal survey pole and knocked the weapon from his hand. Adrian shoved the guard backward while Naomi seized the scanner. She smashed it against the stone floor. The screen froze. Transfer failed. Samuel looked afraid. Then sirens echoed through the canyon. Victor stared toward the tunnel entrance. Naomi smiled faintly. The recorder was uploading the entire time. Adrian looked at her. "When?" "Before we entered the ranger station. I sent the audio to your security chief and told him to contact federal investigators." Samuel turned toward the exit. 2 officers appeared in the doorway. There was nowhere left to go. Within minutes, Samuel, Victor, and the armed men were in custody. Celeste stood apart from them. Helping stop the transfer did not erase what she had done. Adrian faced her. "You tried to frame Naomi. You planned to make her death look accidental." Celeste's eyes filled. "I know. And you betrayed me for money." "I know." He removed the engagement ring from his pocket and placed it on the table. "This is over." Celeste did not argue. Weeks later, Investigators confirmed Samuel had forged documents during Adrian's father's final illness and spent years trying to control Red Ridge. Victor helped hide the paper trail. Celeste joined later, believing she would become rich enough to control everyone around her. Instead, the conspiracy destroyed them all. Red Ridge was permanently transferred into a protected conservation trust. Naomi expected to return quietly to work. Adrian had another idea. He asked her to meet him at the new visitor center overlooking the canyon. A folder waited on the table. Director of Estate Security and Ethics. Naomi stared at it. I'm a maid. You noticed the documents, recorded the confession, saved Celeste from falling, and stopped $32 million from disappearing. That does not make me an executive. No, Adrian said. Your judgment does. Naomi smiled softly. She accepted immediately. Months later, Adrian and Naomi returned to the same cliff path with a conservation team. The edge had been secured with a railing. Celeste was gone. Samuel was awaiting trial. The land stretched untouched beneath the afternoon sun. Adrian looked toward Naomi. You could have let her fall that day. Naomi shook her head. Justice is not revenge. He nodded slowly. That was the lesson Red Ridge left behind. Celeste tried to push a black maid toward the edge because she believed power meant deciding who mattered. Instead, Naomi saved the woman who wanted her gone, exposed the men behind her, and protected the billionaire without sacrificing who she was. The cliff was where the betrayal began. But it was also where every lie finally ran out of room.